Now, these can be detected. So Robin asked the question, can they be detected? Yes, they can. They can be detected either through a blood test or a bone marrow test. Bone marrow test is a more sensitive way of detecting it. And the provision of this test varies throughout the United Kingdom. There isn't a set test. Different hospitals do slightly different tests. And one of the things that NHS England wants to do is to standardise this across the UK, across England. And I must be careful because they're the devolved nations and they have their own health services. So this is in progress. Right now, Oxford, I think, offers one of the best tests in the country. And we've worked with NHS England to ensure this occurs throughout England. So yes, they can be detected. Yes, they can be detected through a blood test or more sensitively through a bone marrow test. Can they be rectified was the final question. So this is some way off in the future, but there is now the technology, and it's still very much a research tool, for want of a better word. It's still something that only happens in research laboratories. But there are technologies to rectify specific gene mistakes that have occurred. So this made the news recently because in China, a baby was born that had its genes rectified, so a gene mutation rectified. So this was an inherited disorder, not an acquired disorder. So MDS is usually something you acquire in your own blood cells. And I contrast that with inherited, where the mutation actually is in the sperm or the egg, so it's passed down through generations. So this baby had a particular mutation and it was rectified. My sense is that that is still very, a technology still in its infancy, and we don't know how to use it properly, and we don't know how to use it safely without causing problems. I think it'll take a decade or more before it comes into routine practice, but I think it will come into routine practice. And I think it'll make transplantation much safer. So rather than getting a transplant from somebody else, as one or two of you in this audience have done, you'll get a transplant from your own cells, but they'll have been gene corrected or gene edited. So that is definitely happening, going to happen. The seat of it all are these gene mutations, because essentially that causes the blood cells not to behave properly, because the instructions are faulty, right? It's just as if, you go into your car and, nowadays cars are all computer programmed, and one of the instructions is wrong. And so every time you're on a hill, going in second gear or whatever, the engine stops. Well, that's a fault. That may be a computer fault in the car. It's faulty. So MDS is no different, right? There are instructions that are faulty. And what we now realize, now we know that these gene mutations exist, people have done this most incredible set of studies, lots of people, not just one group, where they had genetic data, gene mutation data, on completely different groups of people. People who had psychiatric disorders, people who had heart disease. Those were the first two papers. And then people just did a random selection of people at all ages. And what they found is that they could detect these gene mutations at very, very, very low level in lots and lots of people. I mean lots and lots of people. Very, very low level, extremely low level. And they could stay stably low for a very long time, decades, and just not take over. So a real key question in the field is, why do some people get these gene mutations and they take over, and in other people they just stay very still and don't take over? That's a key question in the field. So you may have had, and I'm not saying you did, but you may have had a gene mutation decades ago, and it may have caused sarcoidosis and just lain dormant for a long time. It is possible. I'm not saying that's what happened.